everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and today's video is going to be my August reading wrap up and my September TBR. So August was a really good month quantity wise. I read 11 books and only DNF'd one. My average star rating was 3.95 stars, which is pretty good. My total pages read was 4,264, and I think a lot of the books that I read this month was sort of like 300-ish pages, thereabouts. So a lot smaller books this month, but it's fine because we read quite a few of them. So let's jump into the books that I read. But before I do that, please remember to like this video if you enjoy it and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. I post videos every Sunday. Okay, so into the books. So the first book I read in August was Powerful by Lauren Roberts, and I gave this one 2 stars. So this is a novella, about 200 pages, that follows the character Adina. So if you've read this series, you know who Adina is. She is Payden's friend who kind of gets left behind whilst Payden's in these trials. I have to say I didn't really enjoy this one, hence the 2-star rating. I thought that Adina was very immature and she fell for this guy very quickly. Like, we're only 100 pages in and she like loves him and she's literally known him 5 minutes. It was a very quick read. I personally didn't find it all that interesting, and I think you'd only really be interested in this novella if you enjoyed Powerful. I don't really feel like it added too much to the story. I only read it because people said that it added a lot. It didn't really for me. I could have just gone into the second book without reading this. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend unless you loved Powerful. Is it Powerful? Powerless. Unless you loved Powerless by Lauren Roberts, I wouldn't recommend reading the novella. The next book I read was Happy Place by Emily Henry, and I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely loved this one. Emily Henry is one of my favourite authors. So this follows Harriet and Wynne. They were friends and then they were engaged, and they've been together for like 10 years or so, and they're part of a group of friends that are also like all couples, and they've actually broken up prior to the start of this book, but they haven't told any of their friends. And what's supposed to happen is every year they go on like all sorts of holidays as a friendship group. They do everything together. And what they decided was, like, for one holiday Harriet would go, the next one Wynne would go. And it turns out 2 of the friends are getting married, and they persuade Wynne to come on the holiday that Harriet's only supposed to be going on. So they reunite and they have to pretend to be a couple so that they don't upset any of their friends and whatnot. And yeah, I just absolutely loved this one. The relationship between Harriet and Wynne was just absolutely beautiful. The friendships, like the found family aspect, was just absolutely stunning. So this did speak about mental health quite a bit, and we did discuss grief, and I feel like it was really represented really well. Yeah, I just absolutely love this one. If you haven't read Emily Henry, I'd highly recommend. Like, she's absolutely amazing. She's one of my favourite authors. But yeah, 5 stars for this one. I then read Sharp Ends by Jo Abercrombie, which is a set of short story collections set in the First Law world, and I gave this one 4 stars. Again, I really enjoyed this one. I did enjoy some of the stories a lot more than others. We followed new characters, we followed old characters. Like, the first story followed Glockter, who's in the first series, so that was really cool to read. We also had quite a few stories that introduced a set of new characters, and then we followed them through quite a few short stories, which was pretty interesting. I really enjoyed this one. There was another one, it's called like Wrong Place, Wrong Time or something, and like during the events of some of the books it follows just like a bank teller when the bank's being robbed or something, and like it was really cool. And I don't think any of these needed to be full-length novels, but I'm glad that Jo Abercrombie got the chance to write them because they were just a bit of fun. This is the 8th book in the First Law world, so I can't really tell you what it's about too much, or that will spoil like the previous books. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. I then read Forged by Blood, and I gave this one at the time 3.5 stars. I think it's more about 3 star. Yeah, so I can't even remember too much of what this one was about. So you follow Demi, whose people have been taken, like whose land has been taken over by like a tyrannical king, and she wants to get revenge. And like, it was an interesting premise. The execution just wasn't very good. The magic wasn't really explained very well either. It was just kind of introduced and that was that, and I didn't really understand it. This came in the adult Pharaoh loot box, but it reads very YA, which isn't a bad thing, but like it just wasn't what I wanted at the time. The characters are quite indistinguishable from each other, and like there's a lot of info drop in, but not in a good way. One of the characters would just say something as if it's obvious that the audience should know this, and yeah, it just wasn't really for me. I didn't really enjoy it, and I was interested to continue the second book, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to buy it and my library doesn't have it. So yeah, I won't be continuing this series because it's 3 stars. I then read Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Emily Wenzel, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This follows Lan, whose mother was like a magic wielder and she died years ago. Her people have been hunted and killed by the colonizers in this world, and she doesn't realize that she can wield magic, and then something happens at a tea house that she works at that releases her magic, and then this is when we're introduced to Zen, who is also a practitioner of this magic, and they meet and work together to hopefully take down the colonizers and explore the magic of this world. This is also inspired by Chinese mythology, and I just thought this was really interesting and really well done. The world was really well developed, and the magic system as well. I'm not really explaining it very well, honestly. I just think just read this book, it's just absolutely amazing. There's like blood magic and demons, like it's really interesting, really good. Even the sort of side characters were really well developed. They all had like backstories that really made you root for them. It wasn't just like the 2 main characters that were following were the only ones that you cared about. All of the characters were really interesting, and yeah, I'm really excited to continue this series. I just need to get hold of a copy, but yeah, this was really good. 4.5 stars, highly recommend. I then read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings, and I gave this one 3 stars. So this one I have quite conflicted feelings about, because I don't think it was good, but I couldn't stop reading it. Like, it was kind of like a car crash. Like, you know you shouldn't look, but you just can't help yourself. Like, I could not stop reading this. But was it good? No, it was not good. So we're following a girl called Magnolia, and she has a very toxic, like, on-off relationship with a guy called BJ. And they were together, and then something happened. BJ cheated on her, and they broke up, but they can't quite let each other go. It's kind of a bit like Blair and Chuck from Gossip Girl, but worse. So like BJ always spends the night in her bed, even if he's like slept with another girl, and he like picks up girls in front of her to make her jealous. And yeah, like BJ is just the absolute worst, and I am not rooting for Magnolia and BJ. And it was very much the first 300 pages were like the same argument over and over. So like Magnolia wants to forgive him, but she wants to know like who it was that he slept with, because he's like, it doesn't matter, and it's like 300 pages of the same thing over and over again. And then some switching character, like Magnolia's like, I'm not going to take you back unless you tell me who it is, and then suddenly she just changes her mind, and then the last sort of 40 pages is where like stuff actually happens, and it's just like, it wasn't good, but like it was trash, but I just couldn't stop reading it. Like, but yeah, I will continue this series, but I'm not in any rush. I think it's a very good palate cleanser when I want like a really quick read that I don't have to pay too much attention to. Like maybe when I'm reading some really epic fantasy, in between I could read something like this. But yeah, I gave this one 3 stars. I liked it. It wasn't good, but I couldn't stop reading it. I then read The Beautiful by Renee Adier, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. So this book and then the next 2 books I read for a Reading the Oldest Books on My TBR video, which I'll leave linked above. So this one, all I'm going to say about it is like vampires in New Orleans in like, is it like the early 1900s or the late 1800s, I think. It had a really interesting setting, a really interesting plot, and it had a really well developed mystery. So like I said, vampires in New Orleans, but we don't know who the vampires are, and we meet a lot of characters that we think, are you a vampire? Are you a vampire? I don't know, like you could be the vampire. And that really kept me reading. It made me really intrigued. It's like, who the hell is the vampire? And we find out at the end like what like the vampires don't really get confirmed until the very end of this book, which was really interesting. And I really enjoyed this one. Considering that it's YA, I've kind of gone off YA a little bit, but I really loved this series and I can't wait to continue. For the same vlog, I then DNF'd Book of 1,000 Days. There isn't much I can tell you about this one. We're following a lady's maid who, her and the lady get locked in a tower because she refused to marry someone, and it's like told in like letter format, which is really interesting. But I just have to be honest, it read very young. I've only read maybe like the first few, like 30-ish pages. I can't even remember where I read up to. It read very young, and I just thought, I'm not actually interested in this. I did enjoy Shannon Hale's Books of Bayern series. I would recommend that one, but yeah, this one just wasn't for me. Maybe for like younger YA readers this would be good, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. So yeah, I did DNF this one. And then for that same vlog, I read Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is the second book in the Dance of Thieves duology, which is a sequel series to the Kiss of Deception series, which I read quite a few years ago. I gave this one 3.5 stars, same actually rating as the first book in this series. It's a very fun YA fantasy series, so I can't really go into the plot too much of what this series is about because it links to the Kiss of Deception, but we're following, so the characters in the Kiss of Deception do make appearances in this, but they're not the main characters. But we're following Cassie and Jace. So Cassie is like a queen's soldier or like right hand girl, I don't know what exactly she is. And then Jace is the heir to the Ballinger family, keep saying Ballinger, the heir to the Ballinger family who like rule a city, I kind of thing, and she goes there to see like kind of what they're up to, and then we just kind of go from there. Like, I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, this was a fun YA fantasy series. It's not really anything special. I am kind of done with this world now. I don't know if she's going to come out with any more things in this world, but I won't be reading them. It was quite quick to read as well, and it did wrap up this world and this plot very well, but I do think that this particular second book didn't really need to be written. I do feel like it just kind of unraveled a lot of what was resolved in the first book, Dance of Thieves. So yeah, it could have just been a standalone that she'd written, but yeah, still enjoyed this one regardless. And then for another reading vlog, which is probably going to be posted after this video, I read the highest and lowest rated books on my TBR. So the first one for that was Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I did give 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. Brandon Sanderson, again, he's one of my favourite authors, so it's highly unlikely I'm not going to enjoy one of his books. It was a really fun novel, which we don't really get too often from Brandon Sanderson. A lot of his books, because they're all set in the Cosmere world, they're all linked, they're all quite serious, which isn't a bad thing, but it's nice to get some more like fun, low stakes novels in this world. It had a really well developed plot as well, and a really interesting world which he could definitely write a lot more in. Like, he's just opening himself up to write more books. But yeah, this one was really good, and if you want my full thoughts, I would hang around for that next video. And then for that same vlog, I read Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. So I gave this one 3 stars. We're following Hallie and Julian. Now, Hallie had a crush on Julian when they were in school. Julian was a couple of years older, and Julian moved away and became like a professor at university. He teaches classes, and he comes back, I think this is like 15 years later or so. He comes back to spend the summer with his family, and they kind of fall for each other, like, you know, she's living out her childhood crush kind of thing. And Hallie starts writing him like secret admirer letters, and he doesn't know that they're from Hallie. So he's kind of like falling for the girl in the letter and for Hallie at the same time. This was fun. I do think the characters, so like I really liked Julian at the start, but I do feel like at the end of the novel he was just a completely different person, but like there was no growth. He just suddenly changed overnight, which I didn't really enjoy. So yeah, I gave this one 3 stars. It was good, but like I didn't love it. I am interested to read the second book because that follows Julian's sister, who I loved in this book. Like, she was a great side character, and I'm really excited to read her story. And then the final book that I read this month was What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez, and I gave this one 5 stars. This was a surprise 5-star for me. So this one follows Inez, and she lives in 19th century Buenos Aires, and her mother and father spend half of the year away in Egypt, and I think they're archaeologists, and then half the year they come back and spend time with her. She's never been allowed to go to Egypt. In the prologue of this book, she's waiting for a letter from her parents, and then she unfortunately finds out that they have died. She then decides to travel to Egypt and find out what happened to her parents. She thinks they died under very mysterious circumstances, and she wants to get to the bottom of what happened, who they were involved in. And yeah, this was really, I don't want to say too much more because I feel like the less you know the better. This was really, really interesting. The magic system in this book was really, really cool and really well explained. It had a really unique setting as well. I haven't really read many books set in Egypt in like the 1800s, and we had, obviously they're archaeologists, we're following like an archaeological dig, and they're like trying to find Cleopatra's resting place, which is really, really cool. So there's a lot of, you know, nods to history in this as well. The plot was really interesting. It was such a quick read. Like, I couldn't stop reading this. It was absolutely fantastic, and I'll definitely be reading the second book when it's released. But yeah, loved this one. So those were all the books that I finished in August. I did also start another 2 books. So I'm currently 300 pages into Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, which is the second book in the Fourth Wing series. I am enjoying that one so far, but I am finding it's very slow and a lot is happening so far. So I feel like I might just chip away at this one throughout the month. And then I also started reading Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. This is the third book in the Knock 'Em Out series, and we're following Lucian and Sloane. Lucian, or Lucy as he's referred to in the books, he's like one of my favourite characters in this series. I'm really looking forward to reading him and Sloane's story. They're like childhood friends who then became enemies, and now they're kind of like, they won't admit they're attracted to each other still. So yeah, it's like enemies to lovers, but they were also childhood friends, which is really, really cool. So I don't have too many books that I need to read for reading vlogs this month. So I'm going to be doing another reading TikTok hyped books, which Magnolia Parks was a part of, but the way that the library reservation system worked, I had to read that. I couldn't renew it, so I had to read it in August for it to be in this vlog. So you have kind of already had some of my views on that one. But another 2 books for that vlog are The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. All I know about this one is we're following a girl who inherits like a fortune from a guy or like a person that she doesn't even know, and the family obviously aren't very happy about it, and that's all I know about this one, really. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. And then another book for that vlog is going to be A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. All I know about this one is it's like based around Norse mythology. I don't really want to know too much about it, to be honest. I've heard quite mixed things about this one, but I am excited to read it. So then the rest of the month I'm kind of free to read what I like, and in October I'm going to be reading a lot of like spooky books for Halloween, so I kind of want to use September to catch up on a few series and just get rid of some of the library holds that I currently have. So one of the books I would like to read is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second book in the Foundry Side series, which I read in a weekend reading vlog, which I'll link above as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed the first one in this book. It kind of reminds me of like Victorian, like Revolution times. First book was really good, and I'm really excited to get to the second one in this series. I don't know too much about the plot of this one, so we'll just see what happens. I would also, if possible, like to read Dark Age by Pierce Brown. This is the 5th book in the Red Rising series, but technically the second book in the second trilogy. So this trilogy is set like 10 or 15 years after the first trilogy, and we're following like Darrow and like his kids, and like it's about how like after the revolution what happens. It's not as easy as just like defeating the bad guys. The only thing is, this is a chunky book. This is like over 700 pages, and I think reading this alongside Iron Flame, I don't know if I'm going to get them both done, but I would maybe like to make a little dent in this one, just because I don't think I'm going to get to it in October. So it would be nice to hopefully finish this series this year, but we'll see. And then a couple of romances that I would like to read. So my Chestnut Springs reading vlog is going to be coming out this month. I still need to read Hopeless in that one, which follows Beau. I also have the American Roommate Experiment from the library, which I need to read. I just had it out for ages. And then another romance I could get to if I fancy it is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I don't even feel like this one's been read. Like, this feels like brand new from the library, which is really cool. Yeah, they got this in August 2024, so this is like I might even be the first one to read this, but I don't know too much about this one. I read a Christina Lauren book last month, I think, and I enjoyed it I didn't love it, but I want to check out more of their works because I know everyone does love them, and like this cover is stunning as well. I know you shouldn't read a book just based on the cover, but that is what made me want to pick this up. And also like Paradise Problem, it gives me summer vibes. I'm kind of clinging on to summer a little bit, so we'll see about this one. And then the final book that I could get to is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have not read a single book by this author. I'm not interested in loads of them. There's only a couple that I'm actually interested in, and this one has been on my TBR for quite a while. I know it isn't like spooky, but it kind of gives me like autumn vibes, so I kind of want to get to this one this month. It follows a girl who opens a chest in her grandfather's closet or something, and she releases like a demon. I don't know too much about this one. I don't really want to know too much. I quite like going into books when I don't remember too much about what they're about. So yeah, I'm excited to hopefully get to this one this month. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, let me know what you think. And please don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe for more bookish content. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!